In today's episode, we are going to go over something that is brought up all the time with guests at weddings, our couples, even fellow entrepreneurs, and that is how on earth do you work with your spouse?
I ask myself that every morning.
Yeah, well, you're no cup of sunshine either, okay?
Clearly, I'm just a ray of sunshine.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're going to share some not so pretty moments in our marriage and working together. And then we're also going to share kind of how we overcame these challenges slash problems slash egos and how we've gotten to where we are now where we tolerate, I'm just kidding, where we enjoy for the most part working together. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I was wondering where you were going with that. Jeez.
So we're going to start with the uncomfortable, I call them the dark days, okay? I lovingly call them the dark days because
Lovingly.
yeah. I say, they were the past, but they are still part of just how we are today. It's still like we're the same people, even though we have grown a lot, you know, in our relationship. We're still the same people and the same issues are brought up even today. So I just want to dive into a little bit of the dark days. So before coaching, before all the things that we have implemented now, I had this problem where I had to be right all the time. I was a perfectionist up until now, and I was just all fixated on the Emily show. Everything had to look perfect, be perfect, like the social media, expectation of everything needed to be right all the time. And I was the hardest worker. I did everything for the business, which I did do a lot for the business, but so did James. And I just remember the early days of EHP slash JHP, if you didn't know. Emily Hancock Photography used to be James Hancock Photography.
Yeah, I was not good at the whole logistics side and communicating with brides. I just wanted to take cool pictures and
Yeah.
edit them.
Yeah, well, and there's just so much that goes into owning a photography business specifically, but that could be for a later episode. Actually, I'm gonna jot down that note. Don't mind me. I'm just gonna add that in.
You do that.
So
Because I do not take good notes.
I know you don't take good notes, so I'm gonna type that in. But James, I want to hear from your perspective, like what I just shared. Give me your perspective of the dark days.
Just a lot of constant bickering and I do this, you do that, so I'm better than you, and vice versa. And I don't know, it was just a lot of nothing was ever happy. It was just always constant tension, and then put a happy face on for the wedding day, and then go back to the tension.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, like that that attitude and like the tension was brought into like our marriage outside of business. Like it's weird how sometimes we could be fighting on a personal note and literally we would have to like come together on like an email or something and be like, what's your opinion on this email? Like I would still be snarky about it, but I would try to like focus in on like, okay, this is, photography, business Emily talking to business James, not wife Emily talking to husband James. It was weird to compartmentalize things, but that's kind of how it used to be.
Yeah, but compartmentalizing doesn't, it never really always works because we are with each other almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's not really possible to compartmentalize when you're literally like 10 feet away from each other working.
Yep. Well, and I used to make up stories on like observations that I like would make on James. I'm very like type A. I before this, and maybe we can do an episode on this. I wanted to be a veterinarian or like a math and science teacher for like middle or high school. Like I'm very much like a sciencey type girl. Where
Nerd. I believe the word you're looking for is
well,
nerd.
fine. I call me what you will, but that is just how my brain works. So for me, I would observe things and I would just make up all these stories about him. Like he is so good at this and I'm so not, of taking a break from things and not overdoing things and burning yourself out. James is really good about like, oh, is it 5 o'clock? All right, I guess we're done for the day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like 5 blog posts behind. I need to just crank out all this work so that I can, check that, thing off the list. And that was always me. Well, I used to think of, James is, ugh, he's not motivated. He is lazy. He does not want to do this. His heart is not in it. I would just make all these stories and okay, I'm sorry. But that is kind of how we were back in the day. And that would bring up, things into our personal life. Like maybe I asked him to take the trash out. I know I gave that example in my last podcast interview with Joe, our coach. He wouldn't do something in the business, so then it turned into he wouldn't take the trash out, and I'm like, he's lazy all the time, and it would just cause so many fights, so unnecessary fights, and
Yeah, and in
I'm
case
sorry.
you can't tell, Emily, on the other hand, will work until she just falls asleep at the computer.
Yeah, that's
And I
happened.
mean, it's not always a bad thing, but there are some times where you gotta. I would always be. The only thing I was never good at taking a break from is editing. If I get in a groove editing, I will easily edit till like 2 or 3 in the morning and not even realize what time it is. And then back in the dark days when Emily didn't understand why I needed to do that, she's like, okay, the only thing I'll cut off work for is bed. Bedtime comes around, it is time to go to bed. But then I would just want to go ahead and stay up and, sacrifice some sleep because I'm on the editing groove. But no, that didn't work for her.
No. Well, and honestly, like, because we were fighting all the time and because we didn't really have any, like, solid workflows, like, I had my own workflows for, like, business, but, like, as far as things getting done, like, photographers do more than just, like, a click, oh, here's your photo delivered. Like,
Oh,
we do,
biggest misconception in the industry.
yeah, we do so much. Like, we are literally, doing everything. And that could be another podcast episode. But basically, we weren't living into what we could have like achieved back in those days. Like where we are now, we probably could have gotten there a lot faster had we have been better about being a team and honestly just communicating like our needs and not making up stories. I still have issues with that today, but thankfully, we'll get
Not as much.
into
Not nearly as much.
well, yeah, not nearly as much, but then also which I'm going to share, next. Coaching has helped with that, helping recognize where I'm at with making up the stories and everything. So I guess we'll dive into what after like we discovered like we're having issues. We were, oh my gosh, I will tell the side note story. We were at a photography conference. And if you're in the photography or wedding world, you may have heard of Caitlin James, but it was something I invested in. And at the end of the year, she had this room full of photographers. And I made James go with me. And we were in Richmond at this conference. And at the end of her, conversations of like teaching, different little segments, she actually brought on her and her husband's life coach, or their marriage coach. And basically, they did like a live coaching call like on stage in front of all, I don't even, how many photographers were there? Like a couple hundred.
I want to say they had 500 or 600.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It was a large room to be so vulnerable in front of all these basically strangers. Like Caitlin had never met me before, and she was like literally diving into her life. Well, in that segment on stage, the coach was like talking, but it was most of the time her talking to Michael, Caitlin's husband and second shooter. And it wasn't like she was berating him or like trying to like basically make him the bad guy. But how I took the conversation was she was taking him to church and just like talking about all the things he struggled with. And like, it wasn't really like talking about Caitlin because, in my like fangirl moments, I'm like, oh, Caitlin's perfect. Obviously, no one's perfect. But like, I, in that moment, was just realizing, like, oh my gosh, we need a coach because I need someone else to tell James that he is lazy and not doing all these things and, like, just listing off.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember me leaning over to you and
Uh-huh.
saying, what did I say? Do you remember?
You said something along the lines of, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Not a question, just like fact,
Yeah.
we're doing this.
Yep. Because I was like, oh, a coach will absolutely fix James for me. That was literally my mindset. It was terrible.
And of course, my first thought was, oh crap, do we have to do this?
Yeah. Well, and honestly, like finding someone, enter like Joe Malizia, and that is Caitlin's brother-in-law. Actually, he was there cleaning up after the conference, and we were helping just put stuff away. And actually, James met Joe, who was getting into coaching then.
But didn't know who he was.
Yeah, I
Didn't
didn't know who
know
he
he
was.
was starting to do that because they hadn't announced it until like the following week that he was going to start doing coaching.
Yeah, it was a little bit after, but I just remember James was like talking to him. I'm like, oh, that's so fun. Like he met, Joe. I knew who Joe was, but I didn't know what he did. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Like you met a new person. Good for you. And turns out Joe was like, hey, I'm offering coaching. And so James making that connection with him was like, oh, okay. Like he seemed really, chill and nice. Like that's fine. We did a free call with him and kind of went over everything. He was just like, "Yeah, I think I'll be a great fit for coaching." We had this moment of like, with coaching, you have to literally put in the work. It's not like a
He just gives you the
yeah,
magic combination to
yeah,
figure out what's wrong and fixes everything right then and there.
right. So we had to put in the work, and we had to do the things necessary to like fix the marriage and like fix the problems. But we're doing coaching, and I think it was like maybe call number 2 we had, like not the free one, but like the first call.
Yeah.
And just talking with Joe and diving in deeper to what's going on between James and I and those stories I was making up. Yeah, I was the problem. And
Well, not all
I,
of it, but
the majority, my problems that I said that were a problem, I was actually the one causing said problem. So, like the things that I had wrong or I had thought wrong about the situation, it was actually me that was wrong. Like, it was me, not James. And it like blew my mind. And honestly, in doing the coaching with him the past, 3 years now? 3 years with Joe?
dang. Yeah.
I know, it's crazy. I just can't even tell you, like, going back to that mindset of like the old Emily, that's what I like to call that person. Just diving into just all of the things that were going on mentally and how I've overcome all of those challenges. It's really cool to see how much coaching has changed, like me as a person, but also like our marriage. Like it's kind of blended, or what's the word? Like I'm thinking of permeate, but that's a deep word or whatever. But like basically, it's filtered through all of our life instead of just me. It's changed our business, our life, our health physically and
Bled over.
mentally.
That's bled over into other areas of life.
Sure. I'm not good with coming up with words like that. Anyways. So just going over with, coaching with Joe, I really do think that was a really big, reason for us working together. So I don't want to say seamlessly because it's really not seamless. We're not perfect,
no.
but
I would
it's
say anything
better.
but seamless. But it is, yeah, it's better. We each know what we need to do. We're better at communicating where the faults are when there are faults, and we can fix them a lot with a lot less hassle.
Right. Well, and honestly, I guess in your opinion, I want to hear your thoughts on like how coaching has changed and like what you found after doing coaching.
I guess the biggest thing is probably feedback after, like if I maybe don't do groom portraits the exact way that you want them done, or, if maybe there's circumstances that were not in my control that you don't know about, you're not so much like, well, why did you do it this way? Or,
Do I sound like that?
not always, but yeah, like you're just always better now than you were about asking like why did you do the groom portraits at this spot? Well, it was raining outside, so we couldn't go outside, and I would give you all these different examples of, why they had to be done there, instead of you just coming at me saying you're an idiot for doing them this way, which is sometimes what happened in the dark days.
I would say that verbatim.
I'm sure you did a few times.
Oh,
verbatim.
okay. Okay. Well, sorry.
But it's better now.
Well, and honestly, something else, which is, I guess, leading into the next point, is we both have like our strong points in business, and we understand like what I'm better at and what James is better at, and we kind of take our mix of strong points and weak points, and we blend them to be I think, a really good team, which is honestly why I think, our workflow and our systems on the wedding days, like as photographers, they flow so easy now because we do lean into each of our strong suits. And, I just trusting each other, like that situation, honestly, I just remembered that, like maybe not having, communicating what I wanted and needed. And then also not maybe be as flexible with given the situation out of your control, being more gracious, giving grace. What is the word? See, I'm terrible with
Forgiving.
this. Well, no, not necessarily that. It's more, although the only thing coming to mind is flexible. Just being
Yeah,
flexible with
flexible.
the expectation and, just kind of letting it happen and not be so uptight.
Understanding that things will go wrong on a wedding day, and a lot of
Yes.
that too is just with experience in the industry. Because when we've been doing this, how long now? Like
Well,
6-ish
I was going to
years.
say, if we
Understanding that things will go wrong on a wedding day, and a lot of
yes.
that too is just with experience in the industry. Because when we've been doing this, how long now? Like
Well,
6-ish
I was going to
years.
say, if we count JHP days, it's closer to 7.
Sure.
But if you want just EHP, it's more like 5 right now,
Sure.
technically. Count JHP days, it's closer to 7.
Sure.
But if you want just EHP, it's more like 5 right now,
Sure.
technically.
So 5 to 7 years, and I mean, every single wedding we had last year had at least one instance of rain.
I don't
So
want to talk about it.
yeah, it was a rough year as far as the aesthetics go, but you know, having that year kind of cemented in our heads, it's not going to be perfect weather, and crap will go wrong on a wedding day, and you just gotta be able to go with the flow and get on the ball if there's a break in the rain for all of 10 minutes. Sneak in as many portraits as you can, and which we did. So,
Well, and as you were saying that, I just thought of another example of like how it's kind of our coaching has lived into like our business or like grown with it. It's I have to like understand the circumstances, of course, but then also I can't second guess things. Like I need to trust you. Like you are the weatherman. How many apps do you have on your phone? I know your siblings and I give you a hard time.
I
Then
think
like 5.
3. No,
It was
no,
an
I
obnoxious
I
amount.
ditched one because I started doing pop-up ads, and that was annoying.
Okay, well, it's exorbitant. But anyways, you're like the weather guy, and so for me, I just be like, okay, when's the next patch of weather? And obviously, if it's different, I can't get upset. Like he's not the weatherman, he can't predict things, but having that communication and trust with each other is really important on the wedding day. Like for our couple getting married, and they just want beautiful pictures, and they can't help it's raining, and they just, they want it to end up beautiful. So which honestly, the pressures photographers have specifically, or video teams, that could be a whole nother podcast. But anyways, so key point like number 2 to make, I guess, with this conversation is assigning tasks. I know I kind of brought into it a little bit, but I have things that I do that I thrive in, which, would be social media, blogging, anything content creation, which is like these podcast episodes now. Anything that revolves around anything wedding planning, timeline creation, like different stuff like that, as far as like working with our couples, specifically brides. I That's all me. Now, James has his own little things that I cannot stand. But do you want to go into a couple of your favorite tasks that you
Yes.
do for the business?
Number one favorite thing is purchasing gear. I love to find the new latest and greatest cameras, computer, audio stuff.
You like spending money.
I like spending money, but only on relevant stuff. Relevant stuff. But yeah, like maintaining gear, cleaning gear, which is kind of the same thing. Uh, Answering any kind of tech questions that randomly come up throughout the planning process for brides, like especially over COVID, there was a lot of we want to live stream our ceremony because half
Yep.
of our family can't make it in, and a lot of videographers also either they didn't have them or they didn't want to come out and risk COVID or anything, and so we would have to spontaneously have to come up with live stream options for our brides, and just being able to fix tech stuff on the fly is definitely where I thrive. And as you can tell, content creation is not really my strong suit.
No, you don't say.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, some things that I don't really enjoy is I really don't like editing, to be honest with you. I am much too a perfectionist to do that in a timely manner. And if our couples want their photos anytime soon, I can't edit. I can try, but it's not a good time. So what typically happens, and part of me hates it, especially during a busy season where we're on the road almost every other day, if not every weekend, is I drive and James will sit, in the car and edit as I drive. I'm like, we'll listen to podcasts and different things, music, but I am the driver and I'm also a navigator. I'm just better at reading maps and stuff. But James does majority of like the culling, which is like going through and picking the images and stuff. That's what culling is. But he does most of that so quickly just because he's used to doing that. And so I drive, even though I don't really love it, but that's
But
just
you like
something.
that better than editing, and
Well, correct, yes.
I mean, I picked it up so much faster because while I was in college, I was working for the marketing department at Liberty University, and for those sports games, we had to turn around images in like 30 minutes after a game is 30 minutes to an hour after a game was concluded. So, and get them to the news department so they could make some kind of article about it. So, yeah, I just picked it up really fast there, and I've also been doing it for probably 4 or 5 more years than you have. So just getting to that point of,
You mean you've been doing this for 10 years?
yes, I'm
Sounds
old.
old. Yeah.
I am old. I am an old man.
You are.
For anyone
Bless
who
your
doesn't
heart.
know me, I am an old man in a 28-year-old's body. And
You
yes,
don't even know how old you are?
no, I had to think about it because I'm that old.
Okay. Well, anyways.
And also, I just have to rub it in that I'm younger than you
Okay.
while I can.
Well, your birthday's coming up, buddy, and we'll be the same age again. Anyways, something else that I feel like has been really crucial is as you're working with your spouse, see what are the pain points? What are you guys struggling with? Like what is a bottleneck in your business? Like what's not getting done? And figure out which one of you can either tolerate it better or more, or maybe get it done quicker or more efficiently than the other person and give that to them. For example, we do not like taxes. We truly don't. And it sounds weird because I love math in general. Like I love talking about algebra. It's my favorite. Calculus even. Like I
Just
love.
not any kind of practical math that is actually
Correct.
useful in life.
Absolutely. So for me, I would literally leave emails from our CPA, Chris. I love him dearly. He's amazing, does everything for us. I don't even have to do that much, but I just hate doing it. I avoid it. And so for James, like he's like, it has to be done, so I'll just do it. So for us, we have this understood thing where I keep track of like receipts and stuff. I've put them in the filing cabinet and keep track of everything and like emailed receipts. I do that. But when it comes to anything else, and I also label our drives. Anytime we do a drive, I love this app called Mile IQ. It keeps track of literally every time we leave the house. It's probably creepy and, that I have it on my phone that knows my location everywhere. But it is so easy for like tax time to know all of our driving miles. I do that. But when it comes to like taxes, scanning in all the documents, making sure all of that is turned into him, signing things, like that is all James. I just cannot handle doing it. So he willingly maybe does that.
More like it has to be done. Someone's got to do it. I know it ain't going to get done by you.
Yes. So we just have this understood thing where I do some things and he does the rest and it works. So I would definitely encourage you to see what's not working. maybe jot them down. Or if you are like James and you're like, everything has to be digital, don't write it down, put it in your phone, do whatever, but make
And it's not
sure.
because of like environmental stuff. I like having it with me wherever I can go. You know.
Anyways, I just really think if you get down, deeper into a conversation of like, this is not working, then communicate it with your spouse and just be like, hey, is this something that you wouldn't mind doing? Maybe even take something off of their plate in exchange for that. So just little things like that is been really helpful. And even in like our, personal life of like taking care of the house, like he doesn't really mind laundry and I don't love it, but I will do dishes. I don't love dishes,
Ugh,
but
hate dishes.
I will weirdly, like, I would rather do that than like cook. And he would rather cook so the food tastes good. And
Yeah.
I do the dishes. So sometimes it's not a super equal combination because he uses every dish in the kitchen. But that's besides the point.
And it's definitely not intentionally.
Okay, well, now that I know that, you can wash the annoying dishes. But
Except the
anyways,
cast iron. You don't do the cast iron.
more like I mess up the cast iron. You don't let me do the cast iron.
That is true. One time she took Dawn to my cast iron skillet,
It was out of habit. I
and I
didn't mean
was
to.
not happy.
You reseasoned it. It was fine. It's fine. Anyways, so leading into the third and final thing, which has been a huge difference in, our marriage, working together, is you need time together, but then you also need time alone. So have your things that you do by yourself away from each other. Like we're right now in our season of life, we don't have kids. That will, Lord willing, be changing soon. So this might even look different, a year from now, hopefully. But we have things that we like to do alone. For example, you love to game with your brother. That was a heated moment for past Emily in the dark days. Was just he would always love playing that stupid Xbox, and I wanted to run it over with my car. So we just have this love hate relationship with the Xbox. But that's something that he loves to do by himself. I don't do anything with that.
Yeah.
And I
Still
have
like
my
to
own stuff
still
that I
like to
do.
golf and stuff every now and then too.
Yeah. So some things that I like to do without James would be I love to honestly just scroll on TikTok and scroll on Instagram, get information and honestly just like content ideas for the future. I have an entire list of things of, potential content that I can make one day. I also love, like right now, my latest thing is learning all the homestead things, which James doesn't really like because he just had to build me a chicken coop for my little chickens.
It's not a chicken coop. It's a chicken mansion.
It is a chicken mansion. I
It
basically,
is 8 feet by 8 feet by 6 feet tall. That's a mansion for chickens.
okay, well, I had very specific reasonings for the things I requested for my coop. But basically, I love doing a bunch of research for just different new things, like chickens, gardening. I haven't done anything super involved with this, but like I want to learn how to like can things, like an old woman. So I have different interests that I've been trying to get into. But honestly, this kind of dives into like the dark days. Even I was a workaholic up until now, and I would just work until I slept. And honestly, when I had a full time job, I would literally wake up in the morning, I would go to work, and I'd come home and I would work on a blog post or answer emails, or I would do all these different things. And then before you know it, it'd be like 11:30, and I'm like, all right, I got to go to sleep. And then I do it all over again. And so for me, kind of overcoming the workaholicness and avoiding burnout for myself, I've been challenging myself with different things and doing what I lovingly call as like passion projects, which is like chickens. Obviously, it's work maintaining a chicken coop. It's not a lot of work, but stuff like that for a garden. Even I've been trying to put myself into something productive so that part of my brain can almost accept that I'm not working on the business, but at least I'm getting something done. And maybe that's not healthy. Maybe I need to overcome that even. But I basically have learned to take a break and just get away, have like alone time, if you will, and just kind of decompress from like the work day. It's not like super mentally taxing as, a 9 to 5 and then owning a business. But it's still, as we've been taking on more projects like this podcast, it obviously requires more of your like mental space to do things, and obviously your time. So just having that downtime to decompress, if you will, has been really healthy. But genuinely, like, I could be wrong, I could be just making this story up, but I genuinely like being around you. Like, I don't mind being around you all the time.
Eh.
Okay, well,
No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, I wouldn't have chosen to leave my 9 to 5 if I didn't want to, also be able to work with you. So, it was a joke.
Yeah. So I will say, like, some friends of mine are like, I could never work with my husband. We don't even like each other. I'm like, well, there's a lot to unpack in that conversation. Like, maybe we should talk about other things first before you even, consider working with them. But honestly, like, if you like how things are going, with each other, as far as like work getting done and everything, like, honestly, it's a lot of fun to work with your spouse and to make business decisions together. And I don't know, it's just really cool to see each other grow and kind of push each other to be
Well,
better.
and there's other, practical things like I can trust you to get whatever shots you need to. You can trust me to get whatever shots I need to. And we don't we don't have to do the dreaded scramble to find second shooters too.
Well, yeah, like accountability and trust, and like there's just a lot that goes into it, I would definitely say. But overall, like, the biggest thing is just finding out what's not working, and then figure out what do you want your business to do, and how can you both live into that vision and get to like whatever your goal is. And that could be something like a book 15 weddings, or starting a podcast. Like, it could be literally anything, but honestly, it's just how can you both work with your strengths and kind of cover each other's weaknesses to get that thing done. So that, along with coaching, has been just very helpful over the past couple of years, specifically, especially with the dreaded year we don't talk about, just navigating all the uncertainties there and just everything. It's just been really great to have that coaching and different mindset going forward together. Do you have anything else to say, James?
Yeah, ditto.
Oh, riveting, as always.
I mean, yeah, I agree too. It's been a big change and it's been a lot of stress, but I think having worked through all the dark years helped us be able to work through all
Dark
the
days. Get it right.
dark days. Okay, whatever. But yeah, it's helped us been able to work through other unforeseen struggles in the business that we definitely could not have worked through pre-coaching. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we could dive into this a little bit. It was a little embarrassing admitting some things, but I hope that was helpful for all of the husband-wife teams out there. It is possible. It doesn't mean it's, not a struggle or by any means, but, if there's any other way we can be, of help to you, if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, let us know, like, do you have questions about our systems and what we do? Maybe what are some just in general questions you have for like working with your spouse? We want to hear, from you and what your experiences have been like. So if you want to email us, the email will be in the description below, or send me a DM on Instagram, Emily Hancock Photo. And we would love to talk with you, deeper into this topic. So if we have, enough questions, we'll do another episode on it. I have a feeling it'll be pretty popular because, again, it gets brought up pretty much at every wedding. A guest will come up and be like, "Are y'all married? Like, how does that work? Because I hate my wife." Like, I've literally had a guy come up and say that, and I'm like, "Oh."
Granted, he was also like a 60-something-year-old man and
Couple drinks in.
more than a couple.
Yeah. But anyways, love talking about this, even though it was a smidge embarrassing. But hopefully you found it helpful. And thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.